August 28th. We're officially 1 week away from
it's
real
like football eve, right?
real
now.
meaningful football. Football eve for 1 week, though, because
Yeah, but college football tomorrow.
real football.
Oh, sorry.
I prefaced it. I was careful. The sad thing is that this season now not going to have Andrew Luck. We're going to talk about that in just a second. We're going to do two previews. We've got the NFC East and the AFC East to close out the division previews. Next week, of course, we'll be doing this again right before the season starts on Thursday, but we're trying to get a little bit ahead of the game this week by doing it a little early. We're going to talk Bears-Packers a little bit in a second, and then a little college football. Not too much, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just enough to get us through the week.
You like college football a lot more than me, but let's talk about that Miami game real quick. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it either makes the case for no week 0 games or every team getting a week 0 game, because that was something. If you had a chance to watch another football game, would you have?
Well, I did.
Sure.
And it was the one that came afterwards, which was far more entertaining, which was Arizona in Hawaii. And that game actually was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think, the reason that it's great to have NCAA games on Greenline this year. So if you aren't aware, get a PFF Elite subscription. You get all the NFL games with spreads, totals, money lines, and our predicted numbers for those. But you also get all of the FBS slate. So the game that happens at 10 p.m., which normally you have trouble staying up for, all of a sudden can become much more interesting. The total there went from like 74.5 down to 70. And so it kept me up through about 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, that was strange, because I thought that the opening line, or the line that when Greenline opened, was fairly strong at 74.5, 75, and that we had sort of a no pick there. And then by the time it got all the way down to 70, 70.5, we liked the over. And the strange thing about that game is the over was such a good play that one of the teams could turn the ball over 6-7 times and still score 45 points. So
and then Khalil Tate got stopped at the one.
Jones. What?
Khalil Tate got stopped at the one.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Long live June Jones in the run and shoot.
That guy's fun to watch. Khalil Tate, that is. All right, let's go to Andrew Luck, because that news broke as that game was going on. And interestingly, turned the Sunday night preseason week 3 game between the Tennessee Titans, who I will not put an adjective ahead of, but you know how I feel about them, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, into a somewhat compelling and timely game, because of the impact that Luck's injury actually not just has on the Titans, obviously, who play in that division, but also the Steelers.
Right. Last week we previewed the AFC South. We said it was the most boring division in football, and that was with Andrew Luck, one of the great quarterbacks of our time.
Does it get more exciting at least now? There's more up in the air?
Well, that's the thing. Are things that are close exciting even if they're bad? I say no. So I
watch the NCAA tournament.
I don't find it exciting. But it is far more compelling now in terms of prior the Colts were better than even money to win the division. Obviously, I think if you bet them the no to make the playoffs, it's like plus 200. And now they lose a full 2 wins. And if you look at wins above replacements, Luck at 3%, at 1. So it does make a little bit of sense there. But they go from being projected as first place in that division all the way down to last. And now we have, I'm so excited, you have Houston and Tennessee fighting it out for the number 1 in that division.
It's so interesting because the Titans, the difference between Houston and Tennessee from a star side of things is just so drastic, right? Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, now the 2 most valuable players in that division, and they both reside on one team. And yet the Titans and them are basically, in our simulations, about the same. The Texans have a lot of issues around those guys. Mm-hmm. They can't pass protect to save their lives. You should put me out there at left tackle. Maybe they somehow trade for Trent Williams. And then they also have a lot of questions in the secondary as well, and a very hard schedule.
Right. So if you look at the average power ranking of every team on Houston's schedule, they have the most difficult schedule in the NFL this year, in contrast to last season where they had a stretch there where they were playing Nathan Peterman / Josh Allen, Cody Kessler / Blake Bortles, Dak Prescott. They had this string of quarterbacks,
$40 million
that they were playing, and that's why they went on that long win streak. They were eventually found out by Luck's Colts in the playoffs. This season's not going to be as easy of a road. Plus, Jadeveon Clowney, sitting out, possibly being traded, and then the fact that they don't have a general manager sort of all complicates things. Tennessee, very boring, but the sort of very definition of an 8-8 team, and an 8-8 team might be enough to win the division.
I mean, they have questions at quarterback. Legitimately, people are discussing
I agree.
whether or not Marcus Mariota should be the starter, and the backup is Ryan Tannehill. It's not like they've got some rookie or generational talent like Nathan Peterman, who's completing, according to John Gruden, 75% of his passes. By the way,
in practice.
Okay,
that counts.
Just want to let you know. And yet they've got a chance. That tells you, I think, all you need to know about that division. And then the Colts are interesting because with Brissett at the helm a few years ago, it was not pretty. He took sacks at the highest rate in the NFL. It was really kind of hard to watch, actually, especially because there was a lot of value on the Colts that season. And so I found myself watching them a lot and continually being let down as Brissett got sacked. But they now have Frank Reich, who we both have a very high opinion of, who did a tremendous job of taking that offense and turning it into something that, look, it didn't save Luck's career, at least for now, like he's retired, but turned that offense around, dropped his time to throw from well above league average, about like 2.87 seconds, down to about 2.5 seconds, well below league average, to try and keep him from getting hit as much, and still had a very effective offense. So when you put Jacoby Brissett in there, the chance for him to be an average quarterback with Reich far higher than it was with the old regime.
Well, and that's the thing, is like the Colts they were not endowed with a lot of stuff when Ballard took over, right? And they've done about as good as you can imagine with those things. Their defense does not have a ton of talent. Andrew Luck was a beaten-up quarterback, and they basically did everything they could to make him have a good season last year. It wasn't ultimately enough to save his career, but still, plenty there. And so when I look at, I do think like their win total did fall too much. I mean, if you can get them at 6.5, I do think that that's an over is a fairly strong play there. The question is, in that division, what does Jacksonville represent? Because Jacksonville was a team very much like the Bears last season that, they had a pop-up season with like sort of a Trubisky quarterback, and their defense is very good. And as we said last year, their defense doesn't have to regress that much.
Are you saying the Jags are now Chicago South? Because the Bears were Jacksonville North last year.
Yeah, Trubisky is Bortles North, and so the question is, do they come up again? Does their defense do they have enough horses on defense to put them in a position for Nick Foles, the difference between Nick Foles and Blake Bortles, to be enough for them to get in that 7, 8, 9 win range, which might be enough?
I think that's an interesting question because there's, to me, really two tiers now in this division. You've got the two favorites who are weirdly different, as we just discussed, but then you've got the two teams right behind them, and I would have a really hard time right now saying I'm confident that the Jags are a better team. A really tough time saying that. And I know Bortles was bad, but Nick Foles has been a guy that is known for playing well in the right moment in situations that are generally not stable.
Yes.
And that is something that you want to bet against. What I mean by that is under pressure, on third down. I just think back to that throw that saved their season from like the 3-yard line to Alshon Jeffrey
against Houston.
Yeah. And it was just it was quintessential Nick
Saved
Foles.
Saved us the cover too, by the way.
I mean, it was perfect. Like first and second down, just blow it, throw it away. Third and long, heave it up. That's the kind of thing that he has gotten lucky with at the right time. Can he sustain it for a whole season? Whereas the Colts have an infrastructure, and they're now bringing a new guy in. So
right. I think Nick Foles could do a lot more with the Colts than he could with the Jags, right? Nick Foles is a great high variance player that can get you to 4-12 or 12-4, but I don't think he's going to be that median projection is really what the Jaguars need, but not something he's necessarily been capable of in the past. Jaguars open at home against the Chiefs, at the Texans, at home to the Titans, and then on the road to the Broncos. Broncos in September are always a tough play. So they have a tough start. And so that, oftentimes starting out, 1-3, 2-2, 0-4 type of thing can really bury a team if they're not prepared.
Let's talk a little bit about Luck to close this out. I don't think we need to spend any more time on how great of a player he was, but there are some interesting things about Luck that we have talked about quite recently, and one of them is the number of times that he was hit was a lot, right? And I think everyone is attributing the fact that he is hanging it up early to the number of hits that he took. But it is noteworthy to not go out and blame everything around him right off the bat. Some of this is Andrew Luck being a courageous guy that refuses to quit. And the guy would make throws after getting just absolutely obliterated in the pocket. He would come back and he would do it again. I still think about that game in Denver where he's just diving, getting speared in the side. His spleen is bleeding everywhere. He is as gutsy as it came and was still able to maintain that high level. But there is some ownership of those hits that do fall on Andrew Luck.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We had an article 2 weeks ago about the fact that quarterbacks generally own their pressure rates. Guys are more or less likely to stay in the pocket, whether it's, being able to read better or being able to just be
Well, he has a book club.
Right, he does, yeah. So if you're decisive or not, or, in the case, for example, of Aaron Rodgers, where you like to extend plays, Russell Wilson, the same thing, or you're Tom Brady, Big Ben, where you like to get the ball out of your hands quickly, it's a lot less about the offensive line than people think. And so while people are going to, drag Grigson about it, I don't think he deserves as much of the blame here as well. It also brings up the sort of philosophical point about Luck and why he retired. It's exactly what you said. He never relented playing quarterback, whether he played with a lacerated spleen, peeing blood and stuff like that, and he still came out there and played. If he were anything less than that, he would probably think he was letting down the Colts. And so it's probably better for him to retire than to give anything less than unrelenting 100%. So for that, I think it makes a lot of sense as to why he just gave up football cold turkey as opposed to played a game or two, stunk, went on IR, and then retired after. I think this makes a lot of sense in relation to how we ended up playing the game.
Well, that gets me to my ultimate thought on Luck, but I'll just a couple of numbers to back up what you've been saying. Time to throw is the big thing that quarterbacks dictate more than anyone else, obviously, because the ball is in their hands. 2.8 seconds or higher time to throw from snap to end of the play for Andrew Luck, all the way up until last season. That's 2.7 is about the average. He drops to 2.5 last season. His pressure rate falls from 44%, absurdly high, over 10% above league average in 2016, to under 30% last year.
Yeah.
I mean, and the crazy thing was that he was a top 5 graded quarterback in both seasons. But the wear and tear difference is tremendous. Ultimately, the cumulative effect was too much. Now, this gets me to my other point, which is the fact that it's happened in this order, I think, is important. So if he had started his career with, say, this season where he got the ball out quickly and was successful, and then as his career progressed, it got worse, I would say he might be calling it quits for good. But my take on this is that really he's just so disappointed with not being able to start the season healthy and not wanting to go through a season where he feels as though he can't play the way he wants to play, which I think is how he started last season, right? His average at the target was abysmal. It was a joke to start last season. To me, this retirement is a tester. Can he get back to 100%? And if he can, I think he gives it another shot because I think he believes in what Frank Reich can do. I think he trusts that organization now. It's simply a matter of I'm not going to put my life in jeopardy again, especially given the fact that I can't play any other way. I got to go out there and give us a shot to win the Super Bowl. So I'm of the mind that a year from now we may be seeing him back. Or 2 years from now, whenever he feels healthy, he's young enough that I think giving it another shot makes
Colts
sense.
cutting him a check certainly would imply that door is open.
Oh, yeah. Well, the cutting him a check is interesting. If they didn't, I immediately would have pivoted to, as soon as Brady's out in New England, Andrew Luck is just going right in there. But the cutting him a check is hey, if you come back, just make sure you come back here, which I think makes a ton of sense.
So if you're – and I don't think we'll give this one out, although I think we'll update our win totals from literally last week's article. If you had to take away 6.5, right? Let's say the line here is 6.5 for the Colts. Are you over or under that?
I'm over. In Frank Reich, I trust.
And the rest of the AFC South, you fade, I'm assuming.
You said they were the most boring division in football, and I'm expanding that to college and pro.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So if you go to Bet Online, for example, it's 7.5 now for the Colts.
Yeah,
so I think that there's been some money here. And that's not indicative of the entire market, but there's certainly people who think Brissett can be a representable player in this.
He just
division.
got sacked again. So
yeah, that's true.
All right, let's move on. Let's do a quick college football discussion because there are actually games tomorrow, I've been told.
I mean, you love to see it, really.
I have been told there are games tomorrow, and there are actually some games tomorrow that are rather interesting, maybe not from a college football playoff perspective, but are interesting from a, hey, I want to enjoy some football and have a rooting interest perspective. One of those is our hometown Cincinnati Bearcats. They host the UCLA Bruins, a Bruins team traveling from lovely Los Angeles out to the rough streets of Cincinnati. Having made that trip in the past, I know what a hard trip that can be, how hard it is to acclimate to the conditions. They are a 3-point favorite. If you go on Greenline right now, you can see where our number is as far as covering that spread. But a game that should be pretty close, where there might be some value on on a team that maybe you're not familiar with.
Yeah, and this has been interesting because I think back about a month ago, you could have gotten UCLA at plus 3.5, which I think, in a game between two teams you know very little about, not terrible, basically the home field advantage. That number got all the way down to 2 just a couple days ago, and now the consensus line that we have is 3. So there's certainly differing opinions on this game depending upon the number. It sits at 3 now. The Bearcats, very good defensively, a little shaky at quarterback last year with Desmond Ridder, but he emerged a little bit down the stretch and gave them some positive play here. Total, not much on the total, 57.5, a little low for college football. It'll be interesting to see what UCLA, 1 year under Chip Kelly, what they can do. The running back Joshua Kelly last season was extremely good. Basically a transfer.
You just start talking about running backs in UCLA,
it's college
Cincinnati,
football, so running backs
we're going to move
value.
on. The late night game on Thursday, Utah BYU. If it starts past 10, here's my rule with college football: if it involves a team on the West Coast and starts past 10 p.m., you should be aware of it and you should try and watch it because it's probably going to be an exciting game. Might not be great football, but it will be exciting. That's another game to look for. And then,
we appear to be on the right side of this one. So early,
hey, you want to know? Get a PFF Elite subscription. You get all of Greenline. You go check it out.
The number has moved.
We're not just
since,
giving people
early
stuff
in the
for
week.
free here.
That's true.
I know you're a charitable man.
I am a charitable man.
People helping people.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Couple games on Thursday that are less than a touchdown spread, which are going to be exciting.
And then, of course, a couple of good games the rest of the weekend as well. Obviously, the Saturday nighter, Auburn and Oregon. You've got Houston and Oklahoma, which should be an exciting game. Might check the total number of points there. But anyways, get a PFF Elite subscription. Go check out PFF Greenline and enjoy yourself. All right, back to real football. That was a lot for me.
You're perspiring.
Well, so here's the other thing. We just went for a swim. Mm-hmm. You can probably see the goggle outlines there.
I don't wear goggles.
I try to, to think about these things ahead of time, and I just didn't today. Not at all. So let's move on to the divisions that we're going to preview. Do you want to start with the more interesting one or the less interesting one?
I think they're right. I think they're equally boring, frankly.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's go with the NFC East, which has one good team.
You think that one's less boring than the AFC East?
I think that one is equally boring. Yeah.
Really?
Well, because for me, I think Dallas is overvalued.
Sure, but the difference between Tom Brady and the Patriots and everyone else versus Carson Wentz and the Eagles and everyone else.
But there's compelling stuff in the AFC East that I think is going to bubble up before the stuff in the NFC East.
You mean like having the 32nd ranked quarterback?
Well, the Jets have Sam Darnold, who I think will have, we get to figure some things out about Darnold this year. Buffalo has Josh Allen, which we can he'll be good or crash and burn. I don't think there's a median outcome for him. And then the Dolphins are the fish tank this year, apparently, which
might get Jadeveon Clowney though.
Might get Jadeveon Clowney.
Can he play O-line and quarterback and rush the passer?
So the question then becomes, in that division, the AFC East, New England, we have a little bit under 11 wins projected, playoff berth almost 90%, division title over 80%. The rest of the teams are in a scrum, roughly 7 wins, in Miami a little bit closer to 6. Which one of the Jets or Buffalo become a team that can compete in the AFC for a playoff spot? Because there's always a team in the AFC. Last year was the Dolphins randomly that were in it until the end. The year before, Buffalo actually made the playoffs. The year before that, I mean, which one of these two teams, New York or Buffalo, ends up competing for an AFC playoff spot.
Wow, you really know how to get
you going. Yeah,
get me excited here. The tough thing about both of these teams is they are in need of talent at many key positions. You can't really say, hey, one quarterback has like this good, supporting cast around him. I think people will make the claim that the Jets do with, bringing Le'Veon Bell in. I almost think that's I don't want to say detriment and get the people, angry, but leaning on the run game on early downs with a young quarterback is a recipe for disaster. If you want your young quarterback to be efficient, you want him to throw on downs when he can be more efficient. Yeah. And that is first and second down, as opposed to running the ball for 2-3 yards and then, having this third down, situation. So while I am more bullish on Darnold as a passer, to me, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen have this weird path to competitiveness that doesn't involve the passing game, where Josh Allen himself can be an electric runner with the football. If he has one of those high variance seasons as a runner, here's what I'm saying. I would rather have Josh Allen dropping back on second down and scrambling than handing the ball off to Le'Veon Bell. And I am a bigger proponent of the Bills' coverage possibility
certainly
than the Jets. And so for that reason, I actually think it's the Bills.
See, I disagree only because of a couple things. I agree with you on Buffalo. They have a top 5 defense, although again, those are hard to project. The Adam Gase in Miami never committed to a running back ever. And that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. He never, he had Jay Ajayi for a small time, but he literally traded him the next year. He had Kenyon Drake. He literally,
You're just listing off generational talents.
Exactly.
Right?
So the Bell thing, when it comes down to Sunday,
he never paid any of those guys anything.
And Gase has but there are rumors that Gase didn't really want Bell, right? So when it comes to Sunday and it comes time to actually make decisions, I don't necessarily think we're going to get Bell up the middle every down.
Okay.
And so that's my optimism about the Jets.
Saying the owner is paying him a lot of money. He's going to want to see him.
The other thing is that I think Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder are an underrated trio of receivers. They've done a decent amount on the offensive line with Khalil and Osemele. So, granted, their defense sucks, right? They don't have a pass rusher. Tremaine Johnson was their main free agent signing last year, and he was garbage last year.
Not great.
Jamal Adams is one of the best players in the league, though. So for that, because offense is what wins, and I trust Darnold more, I'm going to go with the Jets slightly over the Bills.
All right, we'll see. Can't wait.
It's going to be so compelling and rich. Does New England fall off though a little bit?
No.
Okay, so that even without Gronk, and then on defense without Patrick Chung.
I think their defense will be better.
Do you smell a bad season out of the Patriots defense without Chung?
I think an interesting component to the Patriots defense this season is the fact that people talk about them losing Trey Flowers. And I would not be surprised to see Michael Bennett come in and give them 85 to 90% of Trey Flowers at this fraction of a cost, which is just the Patriot way. On the offensive side of the ball, losing Gronk is never good, but Gronk was nowhere near Gronk last season.
They've won the Super Bowl.
And in a way, when you have Gronk on the field, even if he's not 100%, you have to, as an offense, Tom Brady's looking at Gronkowski. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. So not having him out there, I'm not saying that it helps them, but it does force them, obviously, to look in other directions. And I don't necessarily – look, if Josh Gordon is actually able to stay on the field, right, that's a fantastic addition for them. They've got Julian Edelman, of course, and then just the Brady McDaniel system. I'm not worried about it at all.
Gordon almost 2 yards per route run last year in
Dude's a
his
monster.
games.
And if there's any team and supporting cast that's going to get him back into good stead, it's going to be them. Okay. The NFC East, I think, is more compelling. And the reason for this is that you could talk to 10 people and you might get 50-50 on who they think is going to win this division. A lot of people legitimately think that the Cowboys should be the favorite in this division. They cite defense. They cite Zeke Elliott. They cite Amari Cooper. They cite Carson Wentz's health. A lot of reasons why people are bullish on the Dallas Cowboys. Ross Tucker, who we had on the podcast, very bullish on them because of Travis Frederick coming back. I don't disagree with that. Travis Frederick is actually, in my opinion, a bigger addition than Zeke Elliott. But there is some legitimate conversation about the two at the top. And then the two teams at the bottom both have quarterbacks who we haven't seen yet. So there's more unknown there with Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones. So to me, this one is far more compelling. Let's start with the two at the top, the Eagles and the Cowboys. The gap between the two of them is what?
Humongous. And the reason is Philadelphia is a better team, all our power metrics last year, everything, in terms of player for player, depth, etc., what they value.
Depth matters.
What they do. They probably run the ball on second and long too much, but ultimately they do a lot of great things. Mm-hmm. They also have the second easiest schedule in the NFL this year per our power ranking.
Factual.
Dallas is a top 5 most difficult schedule.
That's what happens when you win the division.
Randomly, right? I mean, Dallas was something like 8-3 in games decided by a score or less last year. That will probably regress. Obviously, defensively they were the talk of the town for a while, culminating in that 13-10 win against New Orleans. Every single game after that, they allowed 20 or more points. The defense has already regressed. You can't. I don't think you
got
can count on that.
DeMarcus Lawrence, who now has gotten paid, immediately gets shoulder surgery.
Right. The Elliott thing will not matter. Okay, but it might also.
Think so?
No, I don't think it'll matter.
Why not? If he comes back, Tony Pollard can't play.
Oh, that's true. You're right. I'm sorry. But for now, while he's holding out.
Listen to this argument. So if Tony Pollard is in there, this is going to be right up your alley because this is what you say all the time. Tony Pollard has zero ego. The number of times that they will feel forced to give Tony Pollard the ball on 2nd and 10 going to be far less than with Zeke Elliott. You put Dak Prescott, we wrote an article on the NFC East. You should go check it out. It comes out today. And we go into the Dak kind of rookie year, really good. Has not had such a great time of it going forward. But he is a guy that you don't want to rely on him making plays in the passing game. So you want to find ways for him when you do have to pass that it is more advantageous for him. So passing on earlier downs is what you need.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think the best thing that a running back can have is a low self-esteem. So a guy that does not want the ball.
That argument about a lot of positions.
25 times a game for a running back is always going to make your offense less efficient in terms of running the ball. So I do agree. But I think Zeke probably comes back, and then he's going to want those carries because they're going to want to justify that contract, and that's going to make them worse, in my opinion.
Did you hear what Marshall Faulk said about Zeke?
No.
So, Zeke's been in Cabo.
Uh-huh.
Now, the times that I've returned from Cabo, I've not been in game shape. I think Zeke probably doing something dissimilar
to what
in
you were
Cabo,
doing.
right? But Marshall Faulk said that he is trying to replicate game situations with him in Cabo so that he comes back game ready. Buying it?
I mean, how can you replicate pass blocking on 3rd and 8? Okay.
I just thought that was interesting because I can't imagine things in Cabo that are simulating NFL game action. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
New York and Washington, I think I agree with you. If they start the rookie quarterbacks, it appears right now that they're not going to.
Yeah.
I don't think that those two teams are compelling in the least until they start the rookie quarterback. Jones has looked terrific in the preseason. Haskins has looked fine. It would be nice if they were to start right away, but I don't think we're going to see them, for quite some time. So unfortunately, that makes them boring and firmly out of the hunt, in my opinion.
No, those are just interesting teams to watch. I think from which of these teams might I be higher on than the public? Last year, the Giants were a team that, with Saquon Barkley coming in, people had this weird infatuation with, and now that's cooled because they saw that they still suck, even with Saquon Barkley catching the ball 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage, making 4 people miss, and gaining 2 yards. As impressive as that is. Now there's a reaction to that, which is, okay, well, the Giants suck. They lost Odell Beckham. They suck more. But they did have a ton of draft picks. And that influx of talent, no one's a good drafter, right? So you just go out there and you just get all of these coin flips in there. A couple of those guys play well. You have, the defense can maybe regress back towards mediocrity, which they were far from a season ago. And they can be a team that actually carries some value despite being bad.
Yeah, I think I've seen their win total 5.5 right now. A lot of juice towards the over, like minus 180 or something. But that's not a terrible play mathematically. I do think that they get their way to 6 wins by hook or by crook. And last season they were far closer to a 7 or 8 win team.
Right.
If you look at like how the games ended up shaking out, than they were a 5-win team. So there might be some value on them. That being said, I think the fact that like I think the AFC East was more compelling only because the Jets-Buffalo question is more today than the Washington-New York question, which I think is a down-the-road question. We might be talking about those two teams in a similar vein next season.
Here's the thing. I weight the intrigue at the top more highly than the intrigue at the bottom, hence my reasoning. Here's a crazy stat for you. So we're going to talk about the Bears and the Packers here in a second. Kind of want to transition into that. So Saquon Barkley, poor guy. I feel bad for Saquon Barkley. I legitimately do, because he gets a lot of hate from the nerd community and the spreadsheets and all of these, these people. And it's not really his fault. Like, the guy's doing everything he can. But we talk about average depth of target, how important it is if you are going to be a catcher of the football to get down the field. So a guy in Tariq Cohen, who is truly remarkable as a receiver from the running back position, his average target is about 4 yards downfield. So you think about that. He's already almost halfway to a first down. Saquon Barkley's average target was just 0.02 yards past the line of scrimmage. So he's got to still get 10 yards to get a first down. Now, what does that mean from a production standpoint? Well, Saquon Barkley caught 91 passes, gained 720 yards. Tariq Cohen caught 71 passes, gained 725 yards, 4 yards more. So the production that you can have by being a receiver that gets downfield, and a lot of that is just what you're asked to do, is huge. So I would look for Pat Shurmur and the Giants to say, look, we have one player that can make plays on this team. Let's do everything we can to turn Saquon Barkley into like David Johnson of a few years back.
Well, you also bring up like the bias of omission as well, right? Because like the 20 targets that aren't going to Cohen, that aren't going to Cohen 0 yards in front of the line of scrimmage are going to a receiver or tight end, which is way more valuable. So not only is Cohen
force feed the guy behind the line of scrimmage,
and not only is Cohen more valuable per play, but Barkley's eating up non-valuable plays that go to players down the field. So there's sort of a two-pronged part of that as well.
So let's transition then into that game. We'll do a quick little preview of that. And a reminder, of course, you can see all of this now on PFF Greenline already. You don't have to wait till next week to start getting ready for this game. Get an elite subscription, pff.com/Greenline. See all of the numbers here. We're going to talk a little bit about it, both from like a number standpoint and just a little bit of a football standpoint. Also, if you are interested in a little bit of friendly-ish competition during the season, you like, betting on football games, I think the best way to do this to make sure that you know what you're risking for the entire season is to play in a season-long competition. The best one to do that with is the Super Contest. It's hosted by the Westgate in Las Vegas, so you do have to go to Vegas to sign up. Now, the bonus is you get to go to Vegas to sign up. And you need a proxy service to do so that they can put your picks in each week, because you got to go live to the book to do so. But there is a great one that I can recommend to you. It's footballcontest.com. We've used them for the past 3-4 years. I'm actually flying out there today, so pray for me. But Maddie and Tony are great people, so if you want to sign up for it, footballcontest.com is where you need to head. You can still make it happen. There's still time. Don't be smart. Get involved. That's what I like to tell people. All right, Bears-Packers. This one started out Bears 4.5. A lot of love for the Bears. They're going to be the team that
initially,
right, team that takes the next step this year. Their defense was tremendous. Trubisky can't possibly be worse. That doesn't happen with young quarterbacks. He's certainly going to get better. Matt Nagy is great. They're the Bears. They play in Chicago, so on and so forth. Everything kind of spiraled in. All of a sudden, you have Aaron Rodgers as a 4.5-point dog, and that has come back now. People obviously love the idea of Rodgers being a underdog. That's always been something that people have enjoyed. And so now line back to 3.
Yeah, and this is, the last time these two teams played this game, it was in December, and I believe Chicago was 6-point favorites, and we liked the Packers at the time. Now they're only 3-point favorites, so you can see, sort of how the perception of those two teams has changed. Chicago, I think, among people who are paying attention, are a clear fade this year in the sense of their defense. Year-to-year regression, to the mean is higher for defense than it is for offense. People have been studying Mitch Trubisky all off season to find like the morsel of truth that he's any good, and many have come up, atheist
Empty.
with respect to Trubisky, and so there's clearly going to be some people that are going to bet the other side of Bears games. That being said, Green Bay, right, there's a couple things. There's a lot of uncertainty with Green Bay. Last season, Rodgers was not very good, relative to what we're used to.
Yep.
A lot of throwaways. I think an NFL record for throwaways in the PFF era.
Over 50.
A defense where I think Pettin has a good reputation, but he did not do as well in our metrics as far as a defensive coach. And then the question is, you bring Matt LaFleur in, and is he – the question then becomes, was Rodgers the catalyst for some of that dysfunction in Green Bay, or was he sort of the recipient of it? And that's a very uncertain thing, because we know LaFleur, basically his third team in 3 years, and was not an efficient play caller a season ago for Tennessee. So it's just a lot of fun. This is going to be a great Thursday night game because we're going to figure out a lot about the season already.
Aaron Rodgers last season, 108 combined sacks / throwaways. Which is the only quarterback since 2006 to go over the century mark. That's incredible. Think about that. Those are, basically once every 6 dropbacks, he's either taking a sack or throwing the ball away. Gives you 0 chance, right? No one's catching a throwaway, and obviously a sack is a negative play yardage-wise. That is something that you would expect to change. But as you said, the interesting thing with LaFleur is that in Tennessee, you would have expected him, if he were taking charge of that offense, for it to lean into the passing game. Now, the tough thing with it is he had Marcus Mariota, and an injured Marcus Mariota at that. So it's hard for me to say we know what LaFleur is. I almost look more to say, okay, what does Kyle Shanahan, what does Sean McVay do? I would expect them to try and do those things. The tough part of that is that's very dissimilar to what Rodgers has done in the past. Because those offenses are so play action heavy, and Rodgers has run less play action than just about everyone this side of Ben Roethlisberger. So it is a very interesting kind of matchup and how they mesh. Rodgers also hasn't taken a snap in the preseason. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains, I would think, with this Packers team. You look back to last season when these two opened up the season, and we had that miraculous comeback by Aaron Rodgers. To me, there's got to be a lot of people that think back to that game and go, there's just no way Rodgers is going to lose to the Bears. Well, he did lose to the Bears in Chicago later that season. The Bears may be losing some things, but I wouldn't just assume that the Packers all of a sudden make this quantum leap getting rid of Mike McCarthy.
Well, and the question becomes is like, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are clearly very smart football people. And there was this discussion yesterday about, okay, is that type of offense where you use bigger formations, you play under center, you run play action a lot, you run bootlegs, throw out of heavy personnel, is that really a way to be efficient in the NFL when your play caller is not a genius, right? And I think that's a really good question, right? Is it because the Packers aren't exactly like replete with talent at tight end or fullback or they have a pretty good running back, but really they're not like the Falcons were in 2016. They're not like the Niners were last season with George Kittle. They're not. And it's unclear as to whether LaFleur is actually this genius in terms of a play caller. So the question is if you're like an ordinary intelligent play caller, should you be running that type of offense, which I think there's a lot to, or should you be running more of a Mike McCarthy offense, which is more out of the shotgun, throwing quicker things, and sort of relying on your quarterback.
Let Aaron Rodgers do
to make reads out of the shotgun. And so for that, I think this game might be a little bit lower scoring than people realize. For a couple of reasons. I think Green Bay is going to take a while to acclimate. I think Chicago's offense isn't going to be as efficient as last year. And I think this is a key sort of thing to underscore. I don't think Chicago's defense is going to create the turnovers that they did last season and give them the short fields that their offenses can convert. So, with that, I think it might be very similar to last season's opening night where you see a lower score, a game in the teens.
I mean, just look at Fuller. Fuller is the microcosm of this. The dude dropped 6 interceptions in 2017 and has 2 total interceptions in 2017. Then in 2018, he drops 1, happened to be the one against Green Bay that would have sealed that game in week 1, and ends up with 7 total caught interceptions, leads the league. So that's just the variance that can happen, and that's not something that's stable season to season. Defense is just not stable season to season, not consistent. So there's that, but then also you mentioned Trubisky, of course, top 5 in terms of uncatchable throw rate, highest rate of negatively graded plays. We just never seen a guy be in the top 5 in terms of negatively graded plays and then lead a top 10 offense the next season. Just hasn't happened. So there's a lot of reason, I think, as much as I hate rooting for no points in this year of our Lord 2019, that might be the place to find some value. So head to PFF Greenline, go check it all out, follow it up. The nice thing about it is that we've tried to make it dynamic so that no matter when you're going in there and checking it out, you can get a lay of the land, you can look at where the line has been, maybe project where you think it will head, and plan accordingly. It might be that, look, the information you get is right now, I'm just going to chill out and I'm going to wait. Or, gosh darn it, I should have picked this up. I should have logged in a week ago, but whatever it is, I think there's some good information there. We go into the team power rankings are on there, quarterback metrics are on there, some team level metrics. So a lot of good stuff, and we'll actually be doing a video on that game because look, it's the start of football. We're excited, so go check it out. All right, we've reached the end of our list. Now I have on here our normal segment, which is
Tales from the Cincinnati Y.
Yes, and we had a great one from Ross Tucker.
Yes.
If you didn't listen to it, you need to go check out the Ross Tucker interview. First off, the guy's great. He knows his stuff and isn't an arrogant douchebag about it, which, I mean, if you...
No, he was terrific. He had some great things to say about the city of Cleveland.
Yes. That was amazing. It was a great... I'm not going to give any more away, but his story about what kind of gets him at the about the YMCA that he goes to is really great. Do you have any stories from the Cincy Y this week that you'd like to share?
Other than you almost dying? Is that a story?
I don't know if almost dying is the right way to put it. You really think I almost died?
I was afraid for you for a little bit there. So this past day, George and I play basketball frequently. We brought in Steve Palazzolo, the big
ringer,
guy, 6'10", and we were playing 21. And George attacked the basket, drop step, brilliant, went up, and Steve flat out just clobbered you.
It was a jump stop, right?
Yeah,
I was trying to split the two of you with a jump stop, and he depleted me basically.
Yeah.
And
it was like in one of those movies where the guy just sticks out his arm.
And and I fell on the left side of my body. Now I shattered my left arm when I was in like 5th grade. So whenever I land on that arm, it's not a good thing. So I was like, the wind was knocked out of me. Steve, of course, very worried about me, worried that he was going to have to pay for my medical bills.
He wanted to make sure he had no
culpability. He got his lawyer in there very quickly. Now, I managed to
playing,
sack up and keep playing. I have a hard time sleeping on the left side of my body now, but I battled through.
But you know what though? With you mangled, I had to win the game.
You did, and you.
I did. I was not going to let Steve win that game.
Steve, the best thing about Steve, you guys obviously love Steve Palazzolo. We love him too. He's like 8 feet tall, and he has the least repeatable jump shot in the history of mankind. He hits the rim on 10% of his shots, but makes like 15 because he either swishes it or airballs it. He made about as many shots as hit like the back wall on an airball. It was really something to behold. I don't think I have any really terrible stories. People have managed to be like decent human beings at the Cincy Y lately. So maybe we're having an impact.
Decent amount of diversity in the people in the steam room this week too.
Oh, really?
So it's different than Ross Tucker's.
You got to go check out that story. Anyways, that's it for us this week. We're going to have An article coming out on the NFC East, the most interesting East Coast division in the NFL. That's coming out today. We'll have a video on Bears-Packers. You want to check that out. Of course, get yourself a PFF Elite subscription. Not only do you get Greenline, it's got everything you need to make this season enjoyable for you. We're so close.
We're so close. This close.
See you guys later. Peace out.